And a good morning, Eagles fans. How are you? You got an edition of Birds 365 coming your way, an undefeated edition of Birds 365 coming your way after the Birds get to 5-0 with their win yesterday against the Rams. We'll analyze it, pick it apart, give it its props over the next 2 hours here on Birds. I got Bill Colarulo by my side today. Johnny Mack is winging his way back from the left coast after watching the Eagles not only win, but basically take over the house in L.A. with as many Eagle fans as were there yesterday. Bill Colarulo, sometimes the final score isn't always indicative of the way a game is played, and yesterday the Eagles win by 9 points. Why do I feel it was a much more dominating effort by Philadelphia yesterday?
Because it really was, Jody. I mean, you look at the yardage, the time of possession. The Eagles dominated the entire game. The one negative, and I don't want to start the day negative, but it's their red zone offense. And I think if their red zone offense was better, the score would have indicated even more of a dominant performance. But they really dominated that game, especially in the second half. My hat's off to Sean Desai. I think that was his best performance as the defensive coordinator of this Eagles team, completely shutting down that Rams offense in the second half. Pretty impressive.
They did. It's just because, being honest again, the Rams moved the ball in the first half. The passing game was very efficient. Cooper Kupp back in, and the Eagles had to know he was coming. He was practicing all week, so you know he was returning from the injured list. And they didn't really have an answer for him early in the game. A couple of different guys. The Rams did a good job of moving Kupp around to the different spots, so it wasn't the same guy covering him. And basically, he took turns beating different Eagle backs on slants, getting open, making catches, getting some yards after catch. I'll be honest, first quarter and a half of that game, I was a little bit nervous, really, until the Eagles had that unbelievable short drive just before the half to recapture the lead, aided by a couple of penalties. Didn't hurt. But that was the absolute turning point of the game because they came out in the second half and it was just a completely different Eagles defense. You're giving the defensive coordinator a lot of credit for that, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, watching that first half, I was furious with their third down efficiency on defense. They let the Rams convert 5 of 7 on third down in that first half for 71%. They came out in the second half. The Rams went 1 of 7 for only 14%. That was the changing of the defense. I mean, getting off the field on third down was huge. And you mentioned that drive at the end of the first half. I know they had 3 timeouts, but there's some coaches who would play it conservatively there, go into halftime. Love the aggressiveness by Nick Sirianni, and that changes the entire momentum. Good teams find a way to put up points before the end of the half, and the Eagles have been really good at that over the last couple of years, and that was a huge, huge point in that game.
A lot of things the Eagles did right. We're here to give a lot of props today, but at the top of the list for me has to be the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, who got off to a bit of a slow start this year. I don't think there's any question that he wasn't quite on the level of the MVP player that he was last year. Oh, by the way, the Eagles were winning the games, even though Jalen looked, I used this word last week, Bill. I don't know if I used it when you were on, but I sure did when John and I were together, that when Jalen Hurts was running the ball, he looked a little tentative. And got a couple calls, couple people. Oh, he looked slow. He didn't look slow to me. He looked tentative. He looked like he didn't want to put his body at risk. And his coaching staff took his back and said, yeah, we need Jalen Hurts. We can't afford to lose Jalen Hurts. We have no problem with Jalen Hurts when he goes into his slides. And I get all of that. And they gave him a $250 million contract, so you have to protect your investment. But he just looked a little tentative. Even with his downfield throws, looked a little more tentative than they did last year in his almost MVP season. There was no tentativeness yesterday. He was throwing the ball all over the lot, throwing it down the field. When he took off and ran, he was running through guys, not going to the ground, not even trying to get out of bounds. He was running through guys. This was absolutely the Jalen Hurts we saw all last year that almost took down an MVP.
No doubt about it. And you're right. In the first 4 weeks of the season, it looked like when he would run, he was looking, where's the hit coming from? But yesterday, he was so aggressive. I think he was listening to you, Jody, because he was very aggressive yesterday. He had that big run. I think it was a 3rd and 9 where he made a great run, took the physical contact, and kept going. It makes you nervous when he does that, but he's just so good at it. And I think he goes to show that when you need him to run the football, he still has that ability to run the football. But throwing the ball yesterday, I don't understand, Jody, how A.J. Brown, he calls himself always open. He really is always open. I don't understand how he gets so open. We were saying it in the green room watching the game with Seth Joyner, because Seth's like, he's not that fast, A.J. Brown. He's not one of your speedsters, but yet these corners play so far off the ball. He's able to get open almost every single play. He's on pace. I was looking at this yesterday. I got to find the numbers, but he's on pace to have, I think, 1,800 yards this year. He set the record last year with 1,400. He's on pace for 1,800 yards through 5 games. It's really incredible what he's doing, too.
Yeah, last 3 weeks, 115 yards, 130 yards, 175 yards. Yeah, I'd say he's on pace for a big season, potentially 200 yards. I don't know how to keep this up, but A.J. Brown has been looking very much. Wasn't A.J. Brown like kind of upset on the sidelines a few weeks back when he wasn't getting the ball? I guess everything's okay. They've been able to work that out. That was probably overhyped a little bit. But I will take one little knock at our head coach, Nick Sirianni, because after the game, asked about Jalen's running and is making plays with his legs. Quote unquote, when Sirianni says, "What y'all say? He couldn't do it anymore." And he was referring to members of the media suggesting that Jalen Hurts can't run the ball anymore. I'll just speak for myself and maybe for some of the other media members around here. Here's what we said. Why isn't he running it like he did before? And Nick Sirianni and offense coordinator Brian Johnson's response was, well, we don't want Jalen Hurts getting hurt. We don't want they took Jalen's back, which they have to do. I get that, even if it was Jalen deciding to slide more. We don't know. They only know the conversations they had as to why he was a little bit more tentative running the football. But he tried to lay it off on them. Would y'all say he can't do it anymore? No, you were the one who said he shouldn't do it anymore. And then he goes out and does it and runs like a madman yesterday. And Nick Sirianni wants to take credit for it. Yeah, a little weak on his part, trying to put it on the media as to pointing out that Jalen Hurts, is absolutely accurate, wasn't the same attack weapon that he was as a running quarterback for the first 4 games of the season. That's just facts, Jack. And the explanation that the coach gave was also understandable, maybe one that people didn't want to hear, but they were asking him to be a little bit more cautious when he took off and ran. Well, he ran like a madman yesterday, and it helped the Eagles win, so now Sirianni wants to take credit for it. Yeah, I think that was a little weak on the coach's part, but kudos to the quarterback for going out and realizing, if I play my entire game, throwing the ball down the field and making plays with my legs, if, like you pointed out, they were a little bit more efficient in the red zone, yesterday would have been a stone-cold blowout of the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, and Sirianni, I'm surprised he even would mention anything like that, but they look for every little competitive advantage they can get, trying to pump
the Philadelphia media, that's where he's looking for his competitive advantages now.
Yeah, I don't even know why he had to go there, but he was fired up yesterday, I'll tell you that. You saw him on the sidelines, and one of the things I talked to John McMullen about at halftime yesterday was, are we going to see Quez Watkins in the second half? Because you saw how fired up Sirianni was with that 3rd and short where they run the wide receiver screen to Quez Watkins. There was a seam there. Devontae Smith was blocking, and instead of going inside of Smith, Quez tries to bounce it outside, doesn't pick up the first down. And I'm still not understanding why they have Quez Watkins on the field as much as they do. Olamide Zaccheaus steps in the last 2 games, plays really well, makes the most of his opportunities, and then they give Quez Watkins 52 snaps yesterday, and they only give Olamide Zaccheaus 9. And what did Quez Watkins do yesterday? Nothing. I don't understand why you're not giving OZ his opportunities when he made the most of them with Quez on the sidelines.
Well, I'll give you the John McMullen answer, because Johnny and I talked about this last week. I mentioned the fact that Puka Nacua would look good in an Eagles uniform, and they'd had a chance to draft him. Instead, they took Kaylee Ringo, who, oh, by the way, can't get on the field. Yesterday, a guy who's been an Eagle for like 20 minutes, Bradley Roby, played a ton of snaps. Goodrich, who was basically benched last week, came back into mix to play in the slot. and Kaylee Ringo couldn't get on the field for it. And I'm not saying the guy will never be a player. All I'm saying is 5 games into his NFL career, he's not a player yet. And John defended the fact that the Eagles didn't necessarily need Puka Nacua because Quez Watkins fills the role that they want him to fill. And the way John describes it is that, yeah, he's the long distance threat. He's the stretch the field guy. He makes Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown that much better than they are because of the threat of Quez Watkins. And my stance has kind of been like yours. Really? Does anybody fear Quez? I know he's got on a piece of paper somewhere a really fast 40 time from the combine, but then there's the rest of his NFL career. And I think I judged that more than what he ran at the combine years ago. Yeah, I don't get it either. Well, Quez is living on his reputation as a fast guy. Before both Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown got here, Quez actually used to catch the ball every once in a while. He hasn't done much of it since. I don't get it either. But again, we're nitpicking the small issues the Eagles have. They are 5-0.
We'll have a positive day. But what's bothered me, last thing on Quez, the first 2 years where he really played, he averaged over 15 yards a catch. Then you look at what he did last year. He's only averaging 10.7 yards per catch. So if he's really stretching the field, you wouldn't see his yards per reception dropping as much as they did. And in the playoffs last year, 1 catch, 8 yards. That's not stretching the field.
And there was one thing, and again, this might be micro-analyzing. They did show it on TV that there was, I forget who was trying to force the ball to AJ or Goedert or whoever it was.
Quez was open.
Quez was wide open in the back of the end zone, which, yeah, Jalen should have seen him, should have gotten to that progressional read, and should have gotten him the football. But I think it kind of tells you something. The quarterback's not looking for him either. We can say they're older. Oh, they're afraid of Quez. Quez stretches field. Quez gives that safety a second thought. That's why AG gets. Does he really? The quarterback doesn't even look for him. And they've got a play that's extending, and he can check the entire field, and he's wide open in the back of the end zone. Quez is an afterthought for Jalen Hurts these days, but we digress.
Let's switch to something positive, Jody. Let's talk about Dallas Goedert. What a game he had. Finally, they get him involved in the offense. Big day for him, and they did it right away on that first drive, which I love to see.
Goedert got a lot of throws in week 2 because week 1 he got 1 target the whole game. So I think they made it a mission to come out and get him the ball a lot in week 2 against Minnesota, and they did. To the grand total of 22 yards. He had like 6 receptions and 7 targets, but everything was short. He wasn't getting down the field. They advanced his routes this week and got him the ball in motion while he was heading up the field, giving him the ability to get run after catch. Yeah, that's the Dallas Goedert that we all talk up as right there with Kittle and Andrews as one of the best tight ends in the National Football League. Didn't look like it for the first 4 weeks of this season. Absolutely looked like it yesterday. I agree with you. It was a concerted effort by the offense coordinator, by the quarterback, but give Dallas Goedert the majority of the credit because he not only made the plays, but he did run with a little reckless abandon after he got his hands on the ball.
Yeah, he's so good after the catch when you can get him the ball in open space. They haven't really been able to do it the first 4 weeks of the season. They were trying a lot of bubble screens to him, but it was nice to see them get him the ball with the opportunity to make plays because you could just see how good he is. And one of the things we were talking about on pregame is how unselfish of a player he is because even though he hasn't been as involved in the passing game as he was in years past, he's so good at run blocking. He's, according to Pro Football Focus, the best graded run blocker in the NFL from the tight end position. And that does so much for your offense. And Jack Stoll's pretty good as well run blocking. So when you can come out in that 12 personnel, which the Eagles like to run, makes it really difficult on defenses because they don't know, are you throwing the ball or are you running the ball? And you essentially have 7 offensive linemen on the field with the way those tight ends can block.
So the final score yesterday, 23-14, Eagles win by 9. It doesn't wow you. We've done a lot of overanalyzing the Eagles that they haven't hit their full stride. 4-0, yeah, but, and the things that they still need to work on, still need to clean up. Yesterday was their most dominating performance of the year, at least in my eyes. I'm not going to let the final score of 23-14 scare me because, oh my, they only won by 9. they dominated that football game yesterday. And both Bill and I think so. We'll get a third view on that. Joining us next is our usual Monday early contributor. Start the week off right. Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports jumps aboard here on Birds 365.